Tak mi dovolte zahájit tu odbornou část naší konference po těch slavnostních projevech. Je mi velkou ctí mezi námi přivítat Lindu Egnatz, výkonnou ředitelku takzvaného The Seal of Biliteracy. Já jsem se s Lindou, jsem měla to štěstí, že jsem se s ní seznámila loni v Chicagu během konference, která byla zasvěcená Heritage Schools v oblasti Chicaga. Pro zajímavost, tato konference byla iniciována naší lektorkou češtiny, nevyslanou lektorkou, která působí na University of Chicago, která vlastně dala všechno dohromady a tak jako v jednom okamžiku během jednoho pracovního dne díky ní, díky Ireně Čajkové, Česká republika udávala tón na půdě americké univerzity. A já jsem díky tomu poznala Lindu a The Seal of Biliteracy a shodou okolností, tedy teď už opravdu shodou okolností, online setkání v únoru ukázalo, že je to přesně to, po čem někteří z vás volají. Takže jsem velice šťastná, že Linda ve svém velmi vytíženém programu byla ochotná přiletět do Evropy a podělit se s námi o svoji zkušenost. Zároveň navážeme potom s naší vyučující a bývalou lektorkou ve škole Tomáše Garrigua Masaryka, kde mimochodem Irena Čajková také působí, která vlastně jako první se svými žáky letos absolvovala zkoušku z češtiny v rámci The Seal of Biliteracy a všechny děti uspěly, což byl úžasný výkon a ta doplní právě Lindinu prezentaci. Kdo neznáte Irenu Čajkovou a Kláru Moldovou, teď předávám již slovo Lindě Egnatz. Linda, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I wish I could do this presentation in Czech, but it is not a language I yet have possession of. So I truly want to thank the hosts of this event, certainly the Senate and the Ministry of Education, and Lucy, as well as my dear friend Clara, who you're going to hear from soon, for the opportunity to work with you. You as Czech educators, even if that isn't your technical profession, Monday through Friday, are incredibly important. You are helping your students preserve a very special gift, which is a native language. And so with that, I'd like to introduce myself and the program that I hope you'll become a part of. So I've titled this Czech to celebrate the success of your Czech language learners. They are all successful, but we don't always give them this recognition and the celebration, but more importantly, what I will share with you, the documentation of what they have learned. My name is Linda Egnatz. I'm the executive director of the program, but most importantly, I'm your partner and I hope team player, and my role here is to support you and your language learners. So my contact information is here. You can certainly see me, and we'll make sure that you have access to this presentation if you'd like to have it later. So the concept of heritage language learning is not just unique to Czech. It is a global opportunity for students all over the world who have connections to another language that may not be the language most spoken in the country where they live. And there are lots of reasons for maintaining a heritage language. Certainly, being a multilingual individual gives you economic and career opportunities. It allows you to culturally connect with others. But most importantly, it gives value to personal cultural connections. It adds to your identity. I like this quote that says, "Language shows that we belong." And last night I had the opportunity to visit the Museum of Literature with some of you. And there was a quote on the wall that talked about how when you're in another country, your language, which is sort of how you belong, isn't present there, but you are also not present in your home country. So you are neither here nor there. Your goal and opportunity as language educators is to make children comfortable with their identity wherever they may find themselves, and to be able to share that identity and be proud. Learners want recognition. We all know that. We had the opportunity to celebrate some language learners here this morning. But language recognition is even more valuable when it can be shared. And so we see whether that sharing is at a celebration where photos are taken and applause is heard, or whether that's an opportunity for them to share that documented language acquisition with their next steps, whether that is for career or for university or academic opportunities. Learners want certificates. This isn't just language learners. It's not even just students. It's anyone who learns a skill. We see in the research that when you can certify the skill, that the skill itself has more value. It's evidence and proof that language was acquired. And in my work with the Global Seal and that recognition process, we've done a number of research studies. And you'll see this in just general academic and university studies, that when a certificate is awarded at the end of a program or incrementally sort of tiered stackable certificates throughout a program, that language retention or interest, enrollment, and retention in the program grows. In fact, in some of the studies, we see that the program enrollment doubles. We also see that not only are the learners there to get a check or a credit completion of a course, but that learners actually want to excel in the course because the certificate is there. And for many heritage language programs, as students get old enough to really begin to use the language in more meaningful ways, they're also distracted by other activities, and sometimes retention is lost. So we want to encourage and sustain a longer sequence of language education. But research is showing that certificates matter for future opportunity, again, for university or work career relationships. So one of the goals for the Global Seal of Biliteracy, which I'll describe a little bit more, not just to provide a certificate to your language learners, but to give them ways to use the certificate, to leverage those language skills for future opportunity. In other words, we want to document them and make them shareable, so that they can use them on a university application, so they could use them for advanced placement in courses, so they could use them to apply for a study abroad or an internship, to come to the home country to be able to continue their education, and for their job resumes or CVs. So adding a certificate to your program, we see in the research, can both excite and really engage your language learners. One of the results that we have seen in a national study in the United States for heritage language programs is that they all face 4 challenges. The first is to maintain and to build student enrollment so that the program is not lost. The second is, how do you keep parents engaged, and how do you inform parents about the students' progress? How are they doing? To show that your program, it really is effective to learn language. How can you implement effective instruction? In other words, oftentimes you may be the one or the only teacher, maybe there are just 2 or 3 of you, and how do you get a measurement of your success? What are the strengths of your program? Maybe what are the weaknesses that could be improved upon? And lastly, how can you find ways to recognize students' success? And so the program I'm going to describe for you will be able to do all of those. The Global Seal of Biliteracy is an international language certificate program that is completely free. There is no cost to the program other than the cost of testing, and there are a variety of tests that can be chosen and used to award the certificates. So it is a free program. Typically, it's a group program. In other words, your school will test your students and apply to the program on their behalf. But we also offer an individual program. Sometimes that's used by educators, by teachers, or community members or adults. But sometimes it's also used by a student who doesn't have access to a group sort of testing situation. There are 3 tiers of the language certificate, which means it's stackable. In other words, we want to encourage a longer sequence of language learning. So we don't want to have one, because what if the student earns that early? We don't want them to leave the program because they think they have already finished the certificate. And so we have 3 certificates, and they're available on both the U.S. ACTFL scale of proficiency for those of you who may want to be in the U.S., or you have students who perhaps want to go to the U.S. for university studies. We also offer certificates on the CEFR, or the Common European Framework of Reference scale. And those, so again, 3 different layers so they can continue to earn a higher and higher certificate. And the Global Seal is doing that in 132 languages currently. So and Czech is definitely one of them. So you can see here by the map how truly global this certificate is. The dark green is where we have issued certificates currently, and the lighter olive green is where certificates are in process. So we have schools that are testing, or we're awaiting those test results. So you can see that for the good part of Europe, we have countries here that are using the Global Seal. Some of those are heritage language programs. Some of those are secondary schools. Many of them are universities and employers. So we have a variety of users that want to certify language skills. The young man here is actually from a middle school, end of a primary program in Poland. Each Global Seal of Biliteracy certificate will list the certificate level of the student. So which one of those 3 certificate levels, we call them functional fluency. That's when your student can get by, they can certainly survive, but it may not be perfect. In fact, it won't be perfect, right? It won't. Then we have our working fluency and a higher level of professional fluency. Each certificate certifies 2 skills, their dominant language skill as well as a language that they are learning. And they can be any 2 languages. If a student has more than 2 languages, then we provide them with an additional certificate that measures that 2nd or 3rd or 4th language. It has the student's name. It can list your school's name, and this is a way to add value to your program, that if you participate in our school, you can be certified with a Global Seal of Biliteracy. Most importantly, it has a serial number. Each certificate is personalized. It has an embossed seal for the Global Seal level they have earned, but it is serial numbered so it can be digitally shared. And I'll share what that looks like and how that serial number can be used. The first and most common way a lot of our students will use it is to add it to a LinkedIn profile. This is also what educators who have a Global Seal do, as well as employers with their employees. And one of the things that we see with this kind of certificate is that people oftentimes self-identify on a resume or a CV their language skills. And so if I ask, I taught Spanish, if I ask students at the end of their first year, could they speak Spanish, they would say yes. But that may not be what the employer would expect that level to be. And so we really think it's important that we certify through measured testing, and that's what this does. When the Global Seal is added to a LinkedIn profile, it goes under licenses and certifications, just as if it were a work or a teacher certificate or other business license. The Global Seal of Biliteracy is also shareable through a certificate tool that identifies not just for an employer or for an academic university program what the student certificate actually looks like with their name on it, but what that level can do. In other words, it describes the proficiency and skill set of that individual student. And the student can add text. They can list their personal experiences with the language, if they have traveled abroad, if they have studied. They could list coursework. They could talk about their personal identity and the importance of their language. They have choices how they will use the second piece of that sharing. What's important for students is that oftentimes what they learn goes unrecognized, or in some cases they're tested and they don't understand the value of the test. It's something they have to get through, but not something they enjoy. This is a University of Oregon student who, when he took a test specifically for the Global Seal of Biliteracy, he said, finally a test that means something. And this is the reaction we see to students. One of the students in our secondary programs in the studies that we finished, he said, it gives you a motive to finish. Before, I was like, why am I in this class? And this is typically how students oftentimes feel about a class, that they can't connect to their future. And so that's what a certificate can do. It's something that students understand connects them to future opportunities. There is value in testing your own students. And yes, a student could take a test elsewhere, and that's fine, and that might also earn them a Global Seal of Biliteracy. But when your program tests your own students, you learn something. But more importantly, it adds relevancy to your program. In other words, you become the gate to getting a certificate. So it adds value to why parents want to enroll a student in your program. It also, because a test comes with test results, it will provide you with information and feedback that can be formative. You can use that information to say, wow, we're doing really well, but maybe we need to work more on writing skills. Or you could celebrate, what you're doing well in both at the individual student level or at the program level. And for parents, you now have a way to show that your program is working, because it's not just your word, it's the external validation from an international organization that says, yes, you're doing a good job. And lastly, we know that students are excited about being recognized and about earning certificates. And so you can begin to build pathways toward that certificate level, or maybe multiple certificate levels when you have a program that begins with students who are very young. Our heritage programs usually see students earning the 2 different levels of the certificate by the time they finish their program. So you create a pathway that will build retention and excite new enrollment. So, who can you test and certify? The Global Seal of Biliteracy has no age or school grade restrictions. So you can test and certify students, teachers, parents who might be interested, even community members. And so that's an exciting way to connect with your community and expand your school program outside of just maybe the younger learners that you work with. Learning a language is important, but again, being able to leverage it, to use it for next steps is equally important. And so one of the things that we do with the Seal of Biliteracy is we document the language skills through an external testing organization, internationally recognized, so it is valued and validated. Students can earn course credit at the university level for a course that may not be offered in their regular school programs. Some, I know Lucy has that opportunity to do in France, but not all countries offer that sort of recognition of the heritage language learners. So you can document a student's language level when they're entering the university. For example, many of our heritage language learners in the US can document their level and enter a third-year university program and gain college credit for that. And lastly, it can help students either study language alongside of another interested major or minor, or even double their language and university focus. So what are we doing specifically in the Czech community? Well, there are many opportunities for students to use their Czech and leverage their language skills for academic purposes. These are just a few of the US programs that are available for students who currently have a higher level of Czech language. There are scholarships and grants for education through the US Department of Education. There is our summer scholarship programs at a number of different universities. And one university even pays for the entire tuition of that student if they enter the Czech program. So that can be of value, but these are not the only ones. There's also certainly college credit options and university options here in Czechia for students who have that language skill. The Global Seal of programs all require for any certificate that the student, again, be tested. They can be tested on the ACTFL scale, commonly used in the US, or on the SEFR scale. And we offer a test finder on our website, which is theglobalseal.com, that allows you to find the test that you want to use, and there's information on how to access that test or to reach and learn more about that test company. And you certainly have your own test here that's offered at Charles University, but you additionally will have, there's maybe other tests that would work better for your students. So when do you test and why? Well, first of all, the testing for language should not be looked at as a pass or fail. Students aren't passing or they're not failing. You're just finding out where they are on their pathway. There's always more language to learn. Even if you're a high-level language learner, there's still new vocabulary I could acquire. And language is dynamic, it changes. There's new trending words and phrases. So students should not feel that they are made to fail. This is just to find out where they are. Next, if you do periodic testing, it gives you the opportunity to inform parents and keep students on track towards things like a certificate or a particular proficiency level. And the feedback you get from the test results can help you improve your own program. So third, testing early can lead to excitement. If you wait until the very end, it is maybe a pass-fail because the students either didn't reach the criteria and get nothing, or some reached it and others did not. And so if you test early, students have an aha that I maybe need to work in a particular area before the very end. So to encourage that, the Global Seal of Biliteracy has created some free tools. One of those is our language passport, which can be used with primary students to kind of help them track their progress, because they will not be at the same level of skill in every area. So if we have reading, writing, speaking, and listening, they will score very high in listening and maybe low in writing. And that's absolutely normal. If you think about first language acquisition, a 2-year-old can understand what you said and go pick up the toy that you asked them to bring you, but they cannot write an essay yet. And language acquisition is a process. It's certainly and we want students to understand that. But get excited about what they can already do well. And to help celebrate, we offer pathway ribbons for students that fall below the certificate level to keep them encouraged and excited and recognized. And we also have some celebratory medals for those who achieve a certificate level. So if you want to prepare students to test, we offer another free tool that is a self-assessment tool. And this time the tool is only in English, but it measures languages based on can-do statements. So those could be either the U.S. ACTFL can-do statements or the Common European Framework of Reference, the CEFR can-do statements for secondary learners. And the students can use the emoji to say, I can't do it, I can do it a little bit with help, or I can do it well. And it is adaptive and will give students a score after mini tests for speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Now, I want to introduce Clara. You've been in Moldova. Clara is at the TJ Maastricht Czech School in Chicago, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience.
Dobré dopoledne. Mé jméno tedy ještě jednou je Klára Moldová a působím v České škole Tomáše Garrigua Masaryka v Chicagu jako zástupkyně pana ředitele a jako paní učitelka. S Lindou jsme se setkali už v roce 2019 na konferenci v Pittsburghu, konferenci českých škol v Severní Americe, kterou pořádáme každoročně pro Spojené státy a Kanadu. Ale tehdy, ačkoliv se nám to, o čem povídala, zdálo velice zajímavé, tak jsme vlastně neměli vhodné studenty v naší škole. Pak jsme se znovu setkali v roce 2022 na konferenci v Chicagu, o které Linda mluvila. Máme to štěstí, že Linda z Chicaga pochází. A už jsme byli v úplně jiné situaci. A moje role tady dnes, jak jsem pochopila, je role pokusného zvířete. A pokusím se vám přiblížit prakticky, jak vypadalo skládání tohoto testu s mými žáky. Na fotografii tady vidíte moji třídu teenagerů ve věku 14 až 17 let. Učím teďka 12 dětí, kteří se všichni rozhodli na Seal of Biliteracy se přihlásit, rozhodli se ho zkusit. A na začátku jsme si tedy vysvětlili, že se netýká o žádné testování prošel, neprošel, jak už Linda zmiňovala, ale že se opravdu jedná o to zjistit, kde se pohybujeme, kolik toho v té třídě zvládáme a na čem je naopak potřeba ještě pracovat. A pro děti bylo důležité projít si i nutné technické vybavení. Při testu nesmíte používat nic než váš počítač a sluchátka, myš, pro toho, kdo by potřeboval, což pro naše děti samozřejmě není žádný problém, ale museli si vyzkoušet, docházelo při testovací hodině k různým podvodům a pokusům o to ten test obejít a všechny tedy byly neúspěšné, takže jsem byla ráda, že jsme si to vyzkoušeli na nečisto, protože si sami uvědomili, že možná jsou technicky zdatnější než jejich učitelé, ale tato pravidla teda jen tak jednoduše neobejdou. Test, který dělali naše děti, byl písemný a poslechový. Byly tam teda dvě části, word and speak. A nejdříve trochu jsme se připravovali tak, ale to už během předchozích let, že jsme s dětmi dělali aktivitu minuta mluvení. Možná to někteří z vás používáte také, ale na začátku hodiny jsme si třeba vylosovali téma, zapli jsme stopky a děti měly na jakékoliv nebo téma od kamarádů prostě vydržet 1 minutu mluvit. A na tomhle si uvědomili, jak těžké to je, jak mnoho času je 1 minuta v ústním projevu. A samozřejmě to se jim pak velice hodilo při skládání toho Global Seal. Další trapná záležitost pro naše teenagery byla potom rozdělení do místnosti, protože samozřejmě v jeden moment všichni musí být pod dozorem toho proktora, který s nimi tu zkoušku skládá, ale v jeden moment všichni musí začít do toho mikrofonu mluvit, protože ta zkouška je také ústní. Takže to jsem shledala jako docela užitečnou zkušenost do budoucna ke skládání zkoušek na univerzitě nebo k různým pohovorům, protože vlastně ačkoliv jejich cílem nebylo se navzájem poslouchat, tak v jeden moment mluvilo více dětí současně na různá zadání a museli se vlastně vypořádat s tím, že kamarád uslyší koktat nebo se zaseknout nebo začít znovu, protože v tom testu je tedy příležitost k tomu vracet se, všechno smazat a začít od znovu, nahrát se znovu. Na začátku toho testování tedy probíhá sebehodnocení. Každý žák dostane pár otázek a musí se soustředit na to, zodpovědět, na co si věří, na co si nevěří, jak by se sám ohodnotil. Tohle bylo velice cenné z mnoha důvodů pro všechny naše děti. Vzhledem k tomu, že s nimi už pár let pracujeme, tak pro některé děti to znamenalo se trochu uskromnit, zatímco pro některé děti jsme zase museli zdůrazňovat potřebu toho se naopak trošku nadhodnotit, protože na to třeba mají, ačkoliv nemají sebedůvěru, tak ale jazykové vybavení ano. Takže tohle je velice cenná zkušenost hned na začátek, zkusit si, kde se na té škále objevuje, dostanete různé otázky, jich asi 7, musíte zodpovědět, ano, rozumím, čtu základní věci, jsem schopen argumentovat a tak dále. A podle toho, jak dítě samo sebe ohodnotí, se potom odvíjí náročnost celého toho testu. Takže i to je cenná zkušenost pro příště, pokud se třeba na poprvé to všechno nepovede dobře říci, aha, já jsem se možná nadhodnotil, možná, že to není tak dobré, jak jsem si myslel. Tady na těch slajdech vidíte, jak vypadá písemná zkouška. Takže vlevo na tom čtverečku nebo na té čtvrtce je zadání. Všechna ta zadání jsou v našem případě tedy v angličtině, ale může si je to dítě pustit namluvené i v češtině. To si myslím, že byl taky důležitý fakt pro děti, které třeba česky by to porozuměly, ale přece jenom ujistit se v tom jazyku, který ovládají lépe v angličtině, mnoho znamenalo, protože potom pro to správné zodpovídání. A jsou v těch testech samozřejmě různé chytáky, dostanete otázku, ale chce se po vás odpovědět formou e-mailu, takže nezapomenout na oslovení, nezapomenout nakonec na podpis. Jednalo se i právě u tohle formu písemného projevu. Všechno to, co tedy ještě jednou napíšete, můžete přepisovat, všechno, co nahrajete ústně, můžete mazat a nahrávat znovu. Tady bych možná ještě zmínila jenom, že v té písemné části je limit 3000 znaků. A to se u nás velice pojilo teda s časovou dotací toho testu, která je neomezená. Děti můžou ten test psát nebo mluvit, nahrávat tak dlouho, jak potřebují, což jsme si mysleli, že je obrovská výhoda, ale v některých případech děti třeba ten test místo 90 minut, což je taková časová dotace, která se odhaduje na obě ty části, trávily třeba 4 hodiny nad tím testem. A nutno podotknout, že ty děti, které jste viděli na fotografii, všechny ten cíl získali ho v úplně té základní úrovni, ale právě některé studentky opravdu nad tím seděly hodiny a hodiny, než se teda odvážili poslat tu výslednou část. Pánové byli hotovi zase velice rychle, takže i to si myslím, že může být použito vlastně pro tu třídu, ale i proti ní, takže ten učitel by měl vědět, jak s tím časově neomezeným prostorem pracovat. Já bych třeba asi příště pro naši třídu udělala i nějaký interní časový limit. Po absolvování toho testu máte jako učitel 2 možnosti. Můžete si vyjet databázi každého toho účastníka zvlášť. Je to takový malý diplom, který vidíte tady vpravo, na kterém se popisuje, jak ten student dopadl. Takže je to perfektní materiál pro to, jak s tím studentem udělat zpětnou vazbu a jak mu ukázat, kde přesně na těch škálách se pohybuje. A ne tedy celkově, ale opravdu ten report rozepisuje jednotlivé složky toho testu. Na závěr jsou tam pak i některá doporučení, jak se sebou pracovat a co zlepšovat. A právě, nevím, jak to je ve vašich školách, ale do Masarykovy školy se dostává spousta nabídek na projekty, na olympiády, na překladatelské soutěže a naše děti jsou z toho někdy už otrávené, protože vždycky slyšíme zase další speciální projekt, proč bych měl tohleto dělat. A vlastně Global Seal nám teďka dává perfektní odpověď a už teďka si odpovídají na to sami, proč bych tohle měl dělat. proč v 17 bych si měl jet někam tamhle pro diplom, mě to vlastně celý nezajímá, ale tohle už je zajímá. Takže nám třeba tohle dalo velikánskou, celý ten Global Seal, celé to testování velikánskou zbraň v podobě toho, víme, proč to děláš, jednou se ti to vrátí právě tady v kategorii, která ti v testování nešla úplně nejlíp. Ještě jsem zapomněla říct, že důležitou složkou, zmiňovala to už Linda, je to tedy Global Seal of Biliteracy. My jsme se zabývali teďka tou češtinskou složkou, ale ty děti dostávají certifikát z toho, že jsou bilingvní. To znamená, že pokud se přihlásili v dostatečně vysokém věku na to, že mohou doložit vysvědčení z angličtiny, tak automaticky ten Global Seal získávají z obou těch jazyků. Ale v případě naší nejmladší studentky se stalo, že se testovala vlastně příliš brzo a musela ještě dodatečně testovat z angličtiny a skládat zkoušku z angličtiny, aby tedy v Global Seal věděli, že je bilingvní. A myslím si, že opět na tu angličtinu zapomínáme a těm dětem tímto vracíme tak nějak důstojnost zpátky k tomu jejich rodnému jazyku. Není to tedy jenom ta otravná čeština pořád dokola, ale jde tady o to, opravdu si dvojjazyčně mluvíš jak česky, v našem případě, tak i anglicky. Tady jsme vám chtěli s Lindou ukázat ještě, jak vypadá celkové hodnocení, které vidí jenom učitel. Po absolvování těch testů se můžete přihlásit do databáze a tady pod tím světle zeleným políčkem jsou zakrytá jednotlivá jména studentů a vy se jako učitel můžete podívat na to, jak ty studenti odpovídali a opravdu si rozkliknout ty jejich nahrávky i přečíst si ty texty. Což je samozřejmě věc, která je nedocenitelná a opravdu slyšet ty vaše děti, které před vámi se třeba neodváží nahrát 2 minuty mluveného projevu, je něco, s čím se pak dá velice dobře pracovat, buď kolektivně, anebo v našem případě možná spíš na individuální bázi, protože ten pubertální věk je v leckterých těch aspektech ošemetný. A tady jsme jenom skopírovali vlastně, jak dopadla moje třída. Abyste kvalifikovali na Global Seal of Biliteracy, musíte testovat v tom, musíte získat 5 bodů a výše, takže naše třída byla právě těsně na hranici toho, že získali tou functional fluency, tedy tu základní testovací skupinu. Trošku lépe jsme na tom byli v mluveném projevu a to psaní teda dopadlo těsně. Tak a na závěr zapomněla jsem říct, že jsme pro testování sehnali sponzora. Ten test vůbec není drahý, ale tímto jsme chtěli sejmout určitou nervozitu i z našich rodičů, kteří jakmile mají na něco přispívat a jakmile se mají na něčem finančně podílet a přesně tomu nerozumí. A tohle není úplně jednoduché na prostudování si, tak se jim do toho vlastně trochu nechce. Takže jsme pro těchto 12 studentů sehnali pána, který ty testy zaplatil, abychom si vyzkoušeli, co to všechno znamená. A tím, že všechny ty děti uspěly, tak jsme se domluvili na tom, že bychom zkoušeli testovat každý rok na konci tedy školního roku, abychom viděli, kam se ta třída posouvá. A tím, že tady moje děti opravdu už někteří se do školy vozí sami, protože mají řidičský průkaz, tak si myslím, že opět jim to dává nějaký důvod se do té školy vracet a pokračovat ve výuce. Oslavy jsme udělali pořádnou party, pozvali jsme na předávání samozřejmě rodiče, udělali jsme ho v rámci závěrečné školní besídky, ale pozvali jsme právě i vzácné hosty z toho nečeského prostředí. Linda tím, že bydlí takhle blízko, tak přijela osobně a předala certifikáty. Měli jsme třeba potomky starosty Antonína Čermáka, chicagského starosty, takže takzvané celebrity. A vlastně jsme se jako vyučující v tenhle moment ustoupili do pozadí a předali jsme našim hostům tu čest ty diplomy předat. A myslím si, že to byla další důležitá věc, že to nebyly pořád ty stejné tváře, ale že to byl někdo speciální, byl to někdo, kdo ta jejich jména nevyslovil česky s háčky a s čárkami, ale vyslovil je anglicky, trochu zkomoleně, ale tak, jak oni to z té Ameriky znají. Takže si myslím, že přes takovéhle kličky jsme snad získali zájem těch dětí na, doufejme, pár let dopředu. A to je ode mě vše. A I'll give the floor back to Linda. A otázky posléze o přestávce, pokud byste měli.
So again, thank you. It was such a pleasure to be at the celebration, to see how proud parents were. And I think sometimes surprised at the success of their students. They didn't know they knew as much as they did. So the next piece of testing is not just the celebration and maybe not just the certificate, but also what will you do with the testing results? So there is something we sometimes call the assessment cycle, that sometimes for students a test just is at the end and then goodbye, and we don't do anything with that information. And if a test is just a score or a percentage or a mark, that may be all the value that it has. But if you use the results of the test, this is my husband. If you use the results of the test to make it a formative assessment, so when we give a test at the end, we call it summative. No more changes can be made. But if you use the results of that test to make the test formative, it gives feedback to your students on how they can improve and feedback to your program about how it can improve. And so you want to assess, if you can, at regular intervals. And they may be a formal test or an international test, or they may be a test that you create. But if you do it regularly, you will get that and use that feedback to have a discussion as the teachers and as the school program to say, what did we learn and what can we improve? And then use, the test results to award pathway ribbons or Global Seal certificates or some other diploma that is important and has value to the students and to their parents. And more importantly, documents their level for their next steps, especially if those are for the university or for employment. Then take that data, the results of your test, especially if it has specific information, writing skills, reading skills, speaking or listening, and make some actual goals for your program. Create a plan for improvement. Make some specific goals for certain students. You can begin to put, even though students are all of the same age, they may not be at the same language level. So this information will help you personalize your program. And then most importantly, once you have implemented the data and those changes, you want to reevaluate and celebrate the growth. And you will see growth when you begin to use data to help you make decisions. So I want to close with just how to participate. And then later, you'll be able to, find me in the break, find Clara, if you're, especially if your English is maybe not as strong, or certainly probably stronger than my Czech. So the first step is just to apply. There is no cost to the application. It is online at globalseal.com, and it's just information gathering about your contact information. Who should we contact? And you tell us a little bit about your school. That allows us to then send you the information that's detailed, the steps by steps, and a tutorial on video on how to submit your test scores to us. So you can apply either before or after you test with a simple online application. This application works for the group, as a school. It also can work as an individual. So you have two opportunities. The second step is to actually test. Testing your students, you want to follow the procedures of the test company that you choose. In some cases, you may have to, if you're using specific tests, sometimes you have to go to a test center or have a certain, tester license to be able to administer the test. Some tests can be, specific dates given. Other tests, for example, the test that Clara School used, was she could select the date when she wanted to provide the test. And so if an individual is testing, they can actually select the date and take a test at home with a remote online proctor. So there's no barriers depending upon what you want to do. And we have the test finder, so you can look for the language, Czech, or any other languages that you might want to certify. And you'll see the tests that we have qualified or approved by our International Board of Advisors. So they vet the test, and then the global seal becomes a proxy to represent any test that may have been taken for universities or for employers. And then the third step is just to wait for the certificates to come to you. We will ship the certificates with the embossed seals at no charge. So the only cost to the program is the cost of the test that you choose. That cost is paid to the test company, so we don't test. We're just going to collect the results and verify those results and provide you with the certificates. Each of the certificates have that serial number so that it can be shared. So that's it. We try to keep it very simple, and we try to support you. We have support information on our website that's available for heritage schools. We have a brochure that can be provided to parents. And if one of you would like to work on that brochure and provide it in Czech, I'd be happy to have that assistance. So we could do that for you as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Our website also has a contact tab, so if you don't remember my information, you can always find it there, and someone from my office will forward me your email. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Lucy.